Hello and welcome to what I hope is the first of many chats with filmmakers behind the films on iWonder. I'm talking today with Jason van Genderen, who has contributed 2 videos to our original series, Coronavirus and Me, that I'll talk a little bit more about. Jason, welcome. I know you're going to be posting this on your social media, so just by way of introduction, because we're still very new, iWonder is www.iwonder.com is a streaming video service devoted entirely to documentaries and current affairs. Our first original production is called Coronavirus and Me, and Jason's videos feature in both of them, the first being kind of the experience and the trials and tribulations of lockdown and some of the creative ways he's solved the isolation issues, and then the second one, talking a little bit more about the experience of going viral with the videos that he's created. So I guess that's a good place to jump off, Jason.
Sure.
Tell us a little bit about your filming of your mother, Oma, and how you came to do that.
Yeah, so well, basically, when isolation happened pretty much everywhere, we kind of withdrew into our shell of our house, and being a production company ourselves, we all our work started drying up. Our commercial productions were all put on pause, and so we're sitting at home with a few edits to work on and kind of nothing else beyond that. And that was understandable because all our clients were pretty much going into caretaker mode as well at the start of this whole pandemic. So we I guess turned the cameras onto our home environment and started looking more at what was going on inside my home in particular. And I think being a documentary storyteller, you never stop looking and searching for story. And I was really curious as to what would unfold in our family with lockdown and how that would affect us as a family unit, how we would still relate with the outside world, and what impact that would have on my mother, considering she's got Alzheimer's disease as well as vascular dementia. And we knew pretty much from the start that there was going to be some things at play there that would change. So we thought by turning the phones on and starting to document what was going on might be a nice way for us to explore that as a family and then share that with our friends as well.
What was the impact of lockdown on your mum? Because she's I encourage the very few people who may not have seen the videos to go check them out on either your Facebook page or on Oma's Applesauce. But I'm very interested to know, what was her initial reaction? How well did she understand? How well did she react? I know that the shopping was a key part of her sort of daily activity.
Yeah, look, to be honest, it was a fresh conversation every day and sometimes every hour. Really, trying to sort of explain to someone with really limited cognitive capacity that you are in the middle of a pandemic and there's this thing called coronavirus. Even though she's watching television all day, she could see it on the news, every hour. It wasn't really sinking, wasn't landing. So it was a foreign concept to her. So for us, I think it was a little bit stressful because we felt like we were over-explaining this, multiple times in a day, what was going on. And that then reflected through to those restrictive conversations we were having with her about, no, we can't go out. No, we can't take you to the shop. No, we can't take you out for coffee. And we just realized we were just doing so many no, you can'ts. And we were catching ourselves out going, this is not really fair to someone who's in her position, who can't really balance that contextual space and understand what a lockdown was. So we were really desperate to try and create some little magic moments at home to help restore some of the routines for her. Taking her weekly shopping away from her, just a simple thing like going out of the house to do your shopping, meant all of a sudden it reflected and manifested in other things she couldn't do. So for instance, she'd forget how to open up a tissue box. Simple concept. If you opened a tissue box up all your life, all of a sudden she was opening it up from the short end or the back end of the box, not, cutting a big sort of square out of it as opposed to just pulling the tissues out the conventional way. She thought the letterbox was all of a sudden in her wardrobe. There was so many other things we noticed were changing in her just simply because of the lack of routine, the disruption in the routine. So we realized that for her, to help keep her stable, we had to try and reintroduce a new kind of normality. And as much as it seemed crazy for everyone that's been watching the videos, our new normal may not be everybody's normal, but for her, we had to try and create circumstances that would give us something to hang on to, and they certainly helped her restore some of her routines and make the day a bit more worthwhile when you're sort of restricted to living in a shell of dementia as well as living in isolation. And I think that really made a big difference for her.
And so you shot a couple of videos, you know, and the through line of all of them is this incredible empathy, this going above and beyond the call and really trying to understand, you know, the shoes that she's in as shifting as the sands are under her feet daily. Tell us a little bit about, you know, that first overnight reaction to your videos and where it went from there.
Yeah, it was quite surprising and shocking for us, to be honest, because I remember posting up the first little video, which is the home supermarket that we built. And we knew we had a really good response from my mother in that video. So I realized amongst my friends and family on Facebook that they would connect with that and really enjoy that. What I wasn't prepared for and what I just wasn't anticipating was the number of shares we were going to collect overnight. And I remember placing my phone down beside my bedside table on night mode and waking up the next morning and just seeing there's notifications coming through from the number of shares that this single video had off our Facebook page. And I couldn't believe it. It was, you know, I've never really experienced virality before, and it was a first for me. So I was watching this with awe going, I think this is what's called virality. The videos, you know, picked up hundreds of thousands of views in that first day, and then it transferred into millions of views within a couple of days. And by the end of that first week, we're sitting at 9 million views, and it just kept on going and going and going. And I just felt really, really compelled to start, I guess, you know, being the documentary storyteller, I felt compelled to start capturing that story as well, because I figured there's so many of us out there that are interested in storytelling and the nature of maybe what viral media is, that maybe I could capture that and share that with people down the track. So we started filming not just the interactions with my mother, but we started filming the whole process of what this was like going viral. And that was an interesting process too. It was just because I was just deer in the headlights. I hadn't experienced this before. It was a new paradigm, and I, in many ways, wasn't really prepared for the eyes of the world gazing down on our little home, and the ensuing kind of media attention and stuff that followed was really quite incredible.
We have a little clip of it. Let's just roll that just for context of this, because it really shows, you know, you obviously are an experienced filmmaker and you know how to create a story with a beginning, middle, and end. But, you know, Oma is a wonderful talent, as they say. And I want to ask you after this about whether she understands where, you know, what a star she's become. Let's see the clip.
Shopping at home.
It's a bit hard because we can't take you to the shops. So we thought we'd bring the shops to you. Okay.
Have a good day, madam. Thank you very much.
I put it up and then went to bed that night, and then the next morning it had just blown up.
This is just the most beautiful story.
So it's been viewed 8 million times. It's been shared hundreds of thousands of times. I got a message the other night that our Prime Minister shared it. This little video that I recorded in my lounge room about my mum.
So, I mean, you've done some subsequent videos of, you know, her first foray out of isolation, going to the Sydney Aquarium, I think, or the Sydney Aquatic Centre. And, you know, does she have a sense, or are there moments where she really understands how big this has been for you and your family and for her?
I think she probably struggles a bit with that. You know, pretty much for us every day, it's a new conversation about what's going on, and we keep showing her the films. And in the end of the day, that's why we started, I guess, capturing these moments in video, was to be able to, as a family, celebrate what we did, but also to replay it back for her. And video is a great medium to do that with someone with dementia, because they lack the ability to keep that short-term memory. In my mother's case, so being able to play the stories and the video back to her, it's new entertainment every single day. And whenever we play one of the news stories that she's been in, it's like an out-of-body experience. She'll be watching herself on the television screen in front of her and going, oh, that's me and that's you, and we're doing this. So
but
it's
not
kind
remembering the moment of it being recorded, kind of thing.
Yeah. And I think what we've very much learned to do is to celebrate those little moments. The moments of that connectivity where it does resonate with her are quite beautiful, and they're special for us as a family unit because they're the things we're left to hang on to. But yeah, she does enjoy it. She has been enjoying a bit of extra attention now that we're gradually allowed to creep out of home. We've been down to the local coffee shop a couple of times, and she's a bit of a local celebrity at the local coffee shop in Foresters Beach. They all love her there, and it's just beautiful. I think what's really nice about this is, James, that we're surrounded by a lot of ageism in our culture, and we're all living in a very busy, condensed, compacted world full of new challenges and contradictions because of things such as pandemics and isolation. And we've all had a bit of a taste of what it's like to live in really restricted circumstances for a number of months. For someone living with dementia, that's constant. That's every day, in and out of isolation. They're always isolated. And I see a lot of people around us living in community that just are disconnected from their families, or that don't receive visitors from people. And I think part of this, what I'm really proud of doing with this, part of this message is trying to create an anti-ageism message, I guess, through these little stories, and try and promote to families and to societies that we can still find good, positive reasons for being, and we have intention in life regardless of our age. We've still got something we can give and some joy that we can partake in. And whether that be someone that's in your family unit, whether that be someone that's living in your street, doing it a bit tough, maybe a bit disconnected from their society, maybe we can reach out and do something a bit different and help create a smile. And sometimes a smile is all you need. And I think that's been one of the big positives I've had with these stories, is finding all these stories from other people around the world that have said just kind of just changed my day. Or even the Prime Minister sharing it on his page. Right. In the middle of all of these government updates about coronavirus, there was this little post he put up saying this made my day, and that really spun me. I think that sort of turned me on my point as a storyteller, and I realized I wasn't doing this as a filmmaker. I wasn't producing these stories really as a filmmaker. I was producing them as a fellow human in the world. And I think it's really taught me a lot more about documentary narrative, and it's taught me a lot more about how audiences respond to stories that are really generated with a lot of heart, and that's really beautiful.
And it seems to me, that we knew from the very earliest days that the most vulnerable people, the most impacted, the most frightened of coronavirus were the elderly. And yet the stories we've been hearing throughout this have been about how celebrities are reacting, how athletes are reacting, what happens when we can't go and see live sport. And I've seen so little about how it's impacted the people who are most, afraid of it, and to whom it's most deadly. And so has the sort of, Alzheimer's charities and things like that, have they reached out to you? Because I feel like you've really exposed something that's so important to shine a light on.
Yeah, actually a really good question, and a really hot one at the moment. We've just in the last 2 days been speaking with organisations such as Dementia Australia, who do incredible work with trying to really bridge that gap of invisibility between general population and people living with a cognitive impairment. They've got a campaign at the moment called Keep the World Open, which is all about trying to understand that the world is not that accessible for people living with something like dementia. So we're talking with them actively at the moment about trying to create some concepts and campaigns and initiatives that will help position the message a little differently amongst this space. And even the global organisation that looks after Alzheimer's, they've been talking with us last night about doing some collaborative stuff together. And I think that's probably one of the beautiful things with documentary narrative. And I think most documentary storytellers, when you create a piece of work that's built around a message of truth, and you have an opportunity through that truth to affect some change or awareness at a scale, I think that is just an incredible blessing It's way more important almost than finding an amazing audience, a big audience. Being able to affect change and change that might potentially be lasting is really, really exciting. And that's something that we as a family have really been enthused by in the past couple of weeks, having people reaching out to us in that capacity. And I think if we can turn what we're doing and the whole cutesy side around being viral and having these little cute little stories going out there that people are really connecting with, if we can also transfer that energy and that goodwill into better awareness and positive change, then I think that'd be an amazing thing to come out of this whole ride, would be to have something like that happen.
Absolutely. And just to dig in a little bit further to your background in production and what you focus on now, you do an iPhone filmmaking course for beginners. Do you want to talk a little bit about that and what you're doing next?
Yeah, so we strangely, as I said before, we run a little production company called Treehouse, and a little over 2 years ago, we decided that we'd had so much fun making short films on smartphones that we were going to really put our money where our mouth was, and we were chucking out all our other cameras, and we were going to concentrate wholly solely on producing on iPhones. And so that's become our production tool of choice. They're broadcast quality iPhones. We can build them up or strip them down depending on the production we're working on. And we do a lot of training in that space. So we now are developing a whole range of training resources that will help not only brands and organizations, but storytellers, people that might be marginalized or isolated wherever they are, but have a great story to tell and the will to tell a story, but perhaps lacking the methods or all the conventional tools at their disposal to tell that story. We're trying to empower them by creating these resources to train them and say, look, with just your phone, you can probably get, if not a great start, an amazing end product. So that's been a real great joy, and trying to surprise people and show people that the phones in our pockets now are incredible production tools. They're the only production tool that I know of in existence that allows us to do a great proportion of pre-production tasks. We can do script writing, location checks. We can do talent releases, location releases. We can do storyboarding. We can then go and do production. We can shoot, and we can do all our post-production and uploading from that phone as well. So it's a really, really powerful tool, and it's representative of a whole new era, I think, in storytelling that's quite exciting.
And what I know, you've been working on a new project that's sort of born out of this moment that you've been through. You want to tell us what you're working on next as a filmmaker or as a teacher?
Yeah, well, as a teacher, I guess the thing we really did out of this was document that process of going viral. So I spent a lot of time, I did a bit of hunting online to see what other people said about what virality was in the media landscape, and how could people achieve virality, or how was virality something that was either measurable or scalable and replicatable. And all the information I was reading, I didn't really think was truthful. It seemed to me a lot of marketing spin. So from having documented pretty much the last 2.5 months of our journey with the stories that we've been producing, we've created a training resource called Going Viral, and it's about to drop. So if people want to stay in touch with that, if they stay connected with my social handle, they'll be able to see when that comes out. But it's a 2-hour course that really looks at my journeys and my experiences of going viral, what worked for me, what didn't. And again, I'm not trained in this space. This is not a space that I have any kind of qualification in, other than I've just experienced it. But I certainly know that the things that I've learned work. And I know that for storytellers that are keen to find mass audience, an audience with real gravity really quickly, that a lot of the things that I've learned are scalable and replicatable amongst other people as well. So I'm really looking forward to getting that information out there and seeing what it does for storytellers, and particularly people with cause-related messaging, because I think it's a really powerful way now. That the whole, the dynamics of reaching an audience have changed a lot in recent times. And if virality can be something that can be, I guess, more tactical as opposed to more reactive, that could potentially be a really good thing for us as storytellers.
I've heard you say elsewhere that you didn't set out, you posted this for friends kind of thing. You didn't set out for it to go viral. What was the moment where you sort of said, I need to as you say, like get tactical about this, not get swept away on it, and how do I go about amplifying it and directing the conversation best? And what were your first steps there?
Well, I think it was pretty much the first week. At the end of the first week, when we reached the 9 million mark, I think I remember sitting down with my wife and going, well, what next? What do you do with this? What is virality worth, and what can you do with it? And you know, we'd had a couple of people reach out to us already in that first week, mainly content aggregators that were looking at licensing footage or licensing the clips that we'd created to help manage the distribution of the content globally, because you get a lot of people reaching out to you asking a lot of things when something like this goes viral. So we experienced some of that, the ups and downsides of that. So I think at that stage, when we were at the end of that first week, we were really going, well, there needs to be something more we can push out of this or gain from this in the way of an understanding of both the nature of going viral, but also what do we do with the stories that we're making? What's the end point? And that's where we decided we were going to make some more pieces with Mum. There was definitely an appetite for this kind of storytelling, and there was an interest level. And peculiarly, there was this really amazing interest level amongst millennials, and seeing, you know, sites like Lad Bible, which you know, my 14-year-old son's crazy about, but seeing them share, you know, 6.5-minute stories about someone living with dementia was astounding. I never realized that they would be even interested in that kind of thing. So we then, I guess, started to take on that role more of trying to create some positive advocacy for the role of trying to promote what life like this is like, trying to speak about what it's like being a carer as well. There's millions of carers all around the world doing this every single day, and they're largely invisible and also socially isolated from their friends' networks and large chunks of their family. So we're certainly not alone in that space. But I think we created a bit of a unity in the story, and that's been one of the great joys is in building a whole global conversation around this that's got many, many different tangents. And we're still exploring what some of those things are, which is is the fun part of the game. Yeah.
And you've got the videos up now on Facebook and other sites through Oma's Applesauce. Which you want to talk a little bit about what Oma's Applesauce, like? Is she a maker of terrific applesauce? I mean, where did this come from?
Great question, James. I actually had someone from the States reach out to me saying, I can't find Oma's Applesauce in the shops anywhere. Where can I get it? So it's literally just a tag or a handle that we put together because we wanted to create a space where we could just put these videos without any other kind of messaging, and just having a place where we could house these little stories. And we realized, obviously, my kids call my mother Oma, which is Dutch for grandmother, and her favorite food of all is this condiment in Dutch cooking, applesauce. I don't know why the Dutch are so fanatical about applesauce, but they are. They love it. And so we thought that sounded like a comfortable place where we could house these stories, and something that had a good story back to my mother as well. So Oma's Applesauce was born. At the moment, I think we've got probably 8 or 9 different stories up there, and it's available on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And yeah, it's a good little spot where people want a little heart top up. They can see the sorts of things we've been doing with Mum, and just get some ideas, you know, like just this is another side of life that a lot of people are not really aware of. And it's just the way we've been living the world. It's not necessarily the right or the wrong. It's just the way our little family's been pushing through the isolation story, and it's growing. You know, we're adding stories pretty much every week.
And your latest one, as we're recording this, is covering you creating a garden in a teacup with your mum. You know, and I think what's so great is that these are ideas that are not just for people who have parents with Alzheimer's and vascular dementia living with them, but what, you know, the things that we can do now that we're old and we're not out of it yet. For a long time to come, we're going to be spending a lot more time together with our families or whoever we live with. And I think that it's the nerve that it may have hit is just think a little bit more about switching off the TV or the PlayStation, and what can you do to make the most of this time and memories out of it.
I think it's a macro focus on presence and present moment, and I think that's something we sometimes all get a bit lost in. Is we get caught up in in so much other things in life that we forget to celebrate those little moments. And if maybe, if isolation globally has probably taught us one thing, it's sometimes just to pause in the moment and understand what's going on and appreciate those around us and appreciate the things we can do together while we are together.
Your kids are back in school now. You're getting back to work. I've heard you say that work is ballooning as a one positive result of this. What are you going to keep from the isolation that you're going to sort of? What are you learning out of this that you're going to filter into your day-to-day life going forward?
Look, from a commercial perspective, working with a lot of brands that we do, I think it's really it's reinvigorated in me the need for us to really speak from our heart rather than our heads. And I think, all too often, I think we base a lot of decisions and a lot of our creative processes on logic. And this has really taught me that, listening to what's going on in here is sometimes so much more powerful. And the one big thing I've learned during creating, this creation process during lockdown is by following what's in here, I discovered a whole new line of narrative and a whole new reason for being, I guess, too. And I've enjoyed that kind of storytelling. So I'm really looking forward to focusing on that and working with brands that are open to that idea of looking at their audience and their consumers through their hearts rather than their heads. And that's a big, brave move for a lot of businesses, but I think it's also a great opportunity. We're living in a very different world now. I think we're going to be living in a different world for a long time. And, we can't just repress the pause button and go back to where we were before as communicators. I think the way we relate to one another and our habits and what's important has changed. And I think we need to really take a moment to reflect on that and understand, in whatever our occupation is and whatever we do day to day, how can we do that a little bit better, and what can we take from the last couple of months? How can we bring that forward and become better humans in the time ahead? How can we live life with a bit more heart and with a little bit more intent and purpose than what we did before?
Great. Well, I think that's a very positive note to maybe wrap it up on. Jason, your handle is you wanted to just walk us through your handle and Oma's applesauce website. Oh, we supered it up here. Jason Van Genderen. The company is Treehouse Creative. Your videos of your mom are on Oma's applesauce. And, I'm really grateful for you talking to us and for shining a light on, the elderly, people living with dementia, and really looking forward to seeing what your filmmaking courses are about and what you guys do next.
Thanks, James. I deeply appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Take care.